Hi everybody, in today's video I'm gonna show you how to configure a Palo Alto firewall. So this configuration or these steps should applies to PA220s, PA440s, A20s, also higher end like 5000s as well. The interfaces, I'm gonna change with the different models. However, the base config will stay the same. I've seen a lot of people, struggling with when they got the first-hand Palo Alto firewall. They struggle to understand what is required so they can, start using the firewall. This is for you to be able to use the firewall. You have to do certain things. You have to create, the zones. You have to create a security policy. You need to have a NAT in a place, a virtual router in a VR in the place. So all these things are required before we can start using the firewall. Currently, I have a PA220s with me. It's a factory default. There's no configurations on it, and as you know, when out of box it comes with 192.168.1.1 IP on the management interface, which you can always connect to and do all the configuration through GUI. However, I'm just going to show you half of the configuration which we can do from the CLI and half of the configuration which we can do from the GUI. I mostly do most of the configuration, including changing the IP address of the management interface, creating the sub interfaces and all that. I try to do that to the CLI because it saves a lot of time. However, also creating the zones, the virtual router and all that things, and creating the default routes and stuff. However, I will just create some steps using the CLI, and the other steps we can do to the GUI as well, so it helps other people as well. So sorry about that. So currently I have the console cable plugged into the console port of the firewall, and then obviously which connected to the USB port on my laptop. And what we do is I'm going to open it. I'm using secure CRT. You can use putty or whatever a program you want to use for the console into the firewall. So currently it's plugged into the serial port. Just make sure we set the baud rate to 9600, and the rest we can leave as default. Okay, so I'm already logged in. It's as I said, it's got no configuration. If I show you, there's no interface configuration, there's no probably op entries, and just to show you the base config as well. So we can see it's a PA220 host name, and we can see here the model of also here we can see the installed version. Currently we have 10.2.8-8-H3, which is the current preferred version from the Palo Alto in May 2024, which could change when you watch the video later date. So currently, as I said, so the management interface has this IP address. So if you want to plug a Ethernet cable to the management interface and plug the other side of the cable to your machine directly, put your machine on the same network, and you can access the firewall now. And default password when you log in is the username is admin, password is admin. Depending on the version, it's going to ask you to change the password on first log on. So what I'll do is I'm going to show you some configuration which we can do through the CLI, and then the rest of the configuration we will do through the GUI. So here I have a configuration build. When we get these firewall out of box, mostly Palo Alto firewalls, they come, the first couple of interface Ethernet 1 and 2, they comes set as a vWire interface, and if we don't delete the vWire configuration, it will not allow us to configure the those interfaces. So first thing we need to do is to delete the vWire configuration. And also there's a security rule, default security rule just created, which we can get it off, and there's a default zones as well, which we can remove. You can leave them there if you want to call your trust side of the network trust, or outside untrust, or if you want to call inside outside, and you can delete it. And also we can delete any configuration on the interfaces as well. So by default, these two interfaces comes with the vWire configuration, which we don't obviously need for this tutorial. And also, if you have your management interface set to DHCP, you have to change that back to static before you can change the IP address. I just left that command there just to mention this. It's very important. Let's say, for example, you set your management interface to DHCP, and now you want to change it. If you don't type this command before you typing these, it will not change. It will revert back to the DHCP IP. So we have to make it static first, and then we have to put the IP address. So here we can see how this command is to set the IP of the management interface, subnet mask, and some others. So there's a default gateway for the management IP address. These are DNS servers. We can set the host name of the firewall. Also, we can set the time zone for the loggings as well. You can also configure the interfaces using the commands as well. However, also create the zones as well, create the default virtual router as well, default route and all that. However, what we'll do is we're going to do that through this through the GUI, so it's easier for everybody as well. So I'm just gonna, obviously we have to be in the configure prompt, otherwise these commands are not going to work. So I'm just going to copy these commands, and then let's just copy first to make sure all these command runs properly, and then I'm going to commit it. Just to make sure none of the command fails. As you can see, there's with the GUI you have to do each click, open the menu, and do it. But with the CLI you can save a lot of time. So I can see all the configuration went very well with no errors. So I'm just going to commit the job. Unfortunately, this is a PA220, which we know is very slow firewalls. Rebooting takes around 20 minutes. Committing a job takes around 4 to 5 minutes. So I'm just going to pause the video here and wait for the jobs to commit, and then once we come back, we're gonna, obviously when the job finishes successfully, we're gonna open the GUI and access the firewall from there. Okay guys, so it took more than a couple of minutes to finish the job, and we can see it was completed successfully. Let's just check if the configuration was saved, and we can see our interfaces with the IP addresses. Sorry, I have to be in the, need to exit from the configuration mode. Okay. Sorry, I haven't done any interface configuration. So only thing I did was just set the host name and set the IP address for the manager interface. And because this is on my network now, and I've just plugged in the manager interface, I should be able to ping this now. Let's see, and we should be able to browse it. There we go. Also, we can see our host name is set as well. So I'm just gonna browse to this. So yeah, we're gonna get the certificate warning, which is expected. So the default password should be admin and admin. Oh. Did I set the password? I'm not sure. Oh, sorry. After I reset and log in first time, it did prompt me to reset the password. So yeah, sorry, I apologize. So once you factory reset and you're on the cert, depending on what version you're on, once you log in through, even through CLI or from the console, it will ask you to change the password. So that's why. We can click do not show. Okay. Here we can see the current version we are using is 10.2.8-H3. This is the dashboard where we can have quite a few widgets here, and you can select difference from these menus as well. If you have a high availability, you can have this one. You can see what interfaces are plugged in. This is a good one, just to give you like a high level view what's going on to the in the firewall. And ACC, you can see some, you know, sort of application, and there's a lot of other data which you can go through this. And the most important tab, obviously one of the most important tab, is when you're troubleshooting the firewall, is the monitoring tab. Just remember, you will only see the traffic logs if you have a current premium support, or you know, support for your firewall. If you don't have any support for it, you will not able to see any traffic logs. You will have to go to the session browser to see what sessions are running. Obviously at the moment there's no traffic, so that's why we don't see anything. Policies, this is where we create the policies, and also we do the netting here and all the other stuff. These are the two main tabs we use. Security tab, where we create, you know, what is allowed, because remember, this is a zone-based firewall, so we allow traffic from one zone to another zone. By default we have two rules already. One is interzone. Interzone means from one zone to another zone, so this is by default is denied, you can see. And also intrazone is by default is allowed. So if you have one zone, like let's say inside, and you have multiple devices plugged in, that's going to be allowed by default. You don't need a security rule. However, you will need a rule if you have to allow a traffic from one zone to another zone. Object, this is where we create, you know, addresses and address groups and application services, all these. Also we can configure, you know, global protects and all these security profiles and all these stuff we can do from here. The networking tab, again, is a very important tab. This is where we configure our interfaces, and we create zones, we create, you know, virtual routers and all those, you know, DHCPs and all that from this tab. So for this example, what we'll do is, we will configure our Ethernet 1/1 as an inside zone, 1/2 for DMZ zone, and 1/8 for the outside zone. You can create zones from inside the interface. From here you can go to, and you can click zone here, or we can always do this, you know, we can prepare the work before others. So you can go to zones tab, and you can click add, and let's call this one inside. And here, make sure, because obviously it's going to be layer 3, we can use as a layer 3 zone. And from here we can add the interface as well, which we don't have. We can do it from the other side as well. So inside, and we can call one outside. It's a layer 3 zone, and we can have one called DMZ for our IoT devices. So once this is created, we can go back to interface and we can start configuring them. I do have some IPs here which we can use. So 10, 20, and 2. Okay. So interface 1/1 we can say is an inside network, and it's a layer 3 interface. Virtual router we can use as a default for now, and security zone going to be inside. IP address, here we can check whether it's a static IP, if it's going to be plugged into over a, you know, ISP which does BPOE, or is it going to be a DHCP. For this one I'm just going to set a static. So we're going to use 192.168.10.1/24. Other than IP address, what we mostly do is we attach a management profile. What management profile allows us, we can do pings, we can do SSH and all those things. We should have created it, but we can create it from here as well. So we click here and click management profile. I will just call it ping for now. So once the management profile, you can attach this to an interface, and if you want to allow SSH or ping or HTTPS, you can allow that as well. For this one, we're only going to allow ping, so we can ping the interface IP address. So we can see here the virtual router is default. Well, for this example is default. If you have more than one VRs, we can, you know, assign this to that VR as well. IP address is assigned, and then the ping management profile is assigned as well, and we should see ping here as well. So here the currently it is showing down because I've got nothing plugged in. Same we're going to do to the interface 2. We can call this as DMZ. Again, it is a layer 3 zone, layer 3 interface. Default route default router, sorry, and this is DMZ. The IP address we can use for this is 192.168.20.1/24. Same, and we can attach the management profile, and then we can configure the Ethos 1/8 for the outside. Layer 3 and virtual router, and this is outside. This is very important. This will help us creating these security rules, so we can allow inside traffic to outside, or inside to DMZ, or outside to inside. It's a zone-based firewall. IP for this one, I think I use my internal range. Just put this for now, 24. Normally we don't allow on our outside interface, but this is going to be in my kind of inside. So for testing purpose, I will just allow the ping as well. Normally we don't allow this on the interface, outside interface. We only do that for our internal interfaces. So now we have configuration for we created our interface configuration. We got our zones. The next thing we need to do is to configure the virtual routers, which is going to tell who is our default route, you know, where it needs to send the traffic. So because we already added these interfaces while creating this, or while configuring the interfaces, they've been already added to the default virtual router. And to configure the default route, we go to static and we go to add. We can call it default. So this is where we need to configure that what destination network we need to send. This is normally when we create a default route for all the traffic to go to the internet, we can create this. So normally we just put /all. The interface is going to be 1/8, and then we put the next hop IP address. That next hop IP is normally our default gateway, which we get, like let's say for example your home router. If I show you mine, on my network, my default route is this one, my router IP. So I'm just going to give that here. This is very important. If this is wrong, the traffic will not go out. Here we can adjust the metric. If let's say for example you have multiple internet connections, we can set the metrics for the higher and lower depending which one you prefer for which traffic. And we can route table we can leave as unicast. Okay, we're still not done. Remember, as I said in the start, for a firewall to start working from scratch to a functional firewall, you will need interface configuration, we will need zones, we will need virtual router, we will need security rules, and also we will need a NAT. If you don't have a NAT, obviously the private IPs will not go out. So these things are very important. So next, let's go to the policy tab, and this is where we can create a security rule. So as I said, like we already have a security rule. If let's say for example, currently if there's a traffic which tries to go from inside to DMZ or DMZ to inside, it's going to be denied because that's an interzone traffic. Same goes for inside to outside. So for that we will need to create a security rule. Sometimes you have to refresh here, it just grays out. So let's just create one inside, outside, something meaningful. You can put description here. If you have tags, you can apply the tags. Tags are very good to combine the rules. One sort of rules you can combine with these tags. Source, yeah, our source gonna be, this is where our device gonna be plugged in. So in this case, the device gonna be from inside. You can define the inside to make it more secure, and obviously when we create security rules in a corporate environment, we try to make sure we have the least amount of any's. So here, if you have only certain inside ranges, we can just add those. Or Here what I'll do is I will just add the RFC 1918 class C range here. So /16 I think. So anything inside with this range should be allowed. Destination outside, we don't know what destination IP, then we're just going to leave it to any. Applications, okay, yeah, it's going to be for internet, it's going to be, you know, SSL, it's going to be web browsing, and sometime we have to just add HTTPS if there is, or not. That's okay. So this should work. Here service, so basically let's say for example we added SSL and web browsing, and on the service or category tab, if you leave as application default, it will say if a browser try to use these ports, it's going to allow. But let's say for example a putty try to use this, which putty's default port is not, you know, 443 or 80, it's going to block that. So it's good to, you know, leave as a application default, but some certain scenarios you have to change that to any, because you know, or not default port, you know, the application try to use those ports. So, you know, in the, you know, in the corporate environment, sometimes we have to, you know, change this to any. So we can, for this one, we can just use application default. In action here we can set the log setting, when to, you know, show the log. If I uncheck this, any traffic hitting this rule, not gonna show any logs in the monitoring tab. So make sure if you want to see the logs, you set this log at end session at the end. You don't want to do this one because you don't want to, you know, see so many logs for the starting of the session. So we only interested when it ends. And also if you have a panorama or any, you know, IoT or whatever, you can forward those logs from here as well. Action setting, if you want to allow or deny, you can, you know, drop, you can select that as well. For this we're going to allow. Profile setting, this is where we set, you know, set our, you know, profiles like, you know, IDS, antivirus, vulnerability protection, anti-spyware, URL filtering, file blocking, data, and all that. So this is the advanced stuff you can do, or you can just create, you know, just go with the default ones. So default, it's always a good idea to have these attached to your security rules. But as we're just doing a testing here, for test purpose, I'll just leave it none for now. Just make sure you have the log at end is allowed, and your required applications or the ports are allowed on the security rule. So this is created, and we can see here, this you can see here is a source zone, which is inside, destination zone outside is allowing these applications. And after this, what we'll need is we will need a NAT. Without NAT, our devices will not go to internet. To do that, we go to the NAT tab, click add. This is going to be a source NAT or SNAT. The original packet is going to come from our inside zones, which is inside zone, and device is going to be in DMZ zone, and they're going to go to outside zone to get internet. And here we can be more specific, that is going to be on destination interface is going to be our outside interface. And here we need to do the translation, so it's going to be dynamic IPN port. So in a way you can say it's a PAT to an interface IP 1/8, and this is the IP is going to use for netting. And yes, so now we have all the required configuration. Once we commit this and plug our device, let's say for example on DMZ or inside, and obviously this goes to our router. Once these interfaces are up, it will flow the traffic. Other thing we can do is we can always set the DHCP as well. So mostly, well, normally, not all the time, we have some devices behind our firewall, let's say IoT devices. So we can always create a DHCP server as well for that. So if we just to show you how to do that as well. So let's say this is 20.0. So what we do is we go to DHCP, click add, select the interface. So the DMZ, so we'll select the DMZ interface, which is 1/2. Here we can set, well, okay, ping IP when allocating new IP address, just to make sure the IP is not used elsewhere as a static IP or something, to make sure it's not a duplicate. And lease time is not a very good idea to leave as unlimited. Just set a time, normally like 3 days is good. So once device hasn't checked after 3 days, it will just release it. We can create the pool. So let's just create 192.168.20.50 up till 192.168.50.100. Here we can add reserve addresses. So for this we need to have a MAC address and the whatever IP we need to assign to that. And then we have to go to the option tab, and we have to put the default gateway. Default gateway will be the IP of our interface, 20.1. Subnet mask is, and DNS we can just use our internal for now. And we can change the mode to auto or enable or disable, whatever we require. So we leave a auto for now. So now anything which we plug on this interface, or normally what we have in the corporate environment is we have one physical interface connected to our switch, our trunk link, and then we will have all the sub interfaces for like inside DMZ, all the other stuff, which, like, let's say for example you have a camera or something, or your cloud storage, or whatever you want, different VLANs we can create in the sub interface. And so because at the moment it's only physical interface, if I plug anything on this interface of the firewall, I will get that IP address from this DHCP server, so I don't have to set up it manually. So yes, so all the configuration looks good. Also I forgot to mention the device tab is where we can make the changes to this device. We can see under general settings, we can see what is the host name. Also we can see the zone, what zone this firewall is set to, what is the IP address. Also here, if you have panorama, we can set the panorama setting here. We'll set it here, and we can enable this. So firewall is managed by the panorama. Currently I don't have panorama, so I'll just leave this bit for now. If you have operations tab, here we can save the here we can restore or do every time, let's say for example you have a firewall, you work in a corporate environment and you want to make a change, and you want to make sure you save its configuration before you make the change. You can always save it does save the running configuration. However, you will always save a snapshot. So let's say for example save a test, and then you can export this externally, just in case firewall doesn't boot up properly, or whatever change you're making is going to break the firewall. We can always export that firewall offline, and it will have all the configuration of the firewall. It's an XML file. If we think it's an XML. So here, whatever we configured, it should, obviously you haven't saved the configuration, that's why it's probably not going to have. I think it does have all the configuration already. So it has exported the running configuration. Here we go. So it's always a good idea. So you can see it has exported the running configuration of the firewall. So it's always good idea to save a snapshot before doing a major change, so you can always go back in case something breaks. Here we can reboot the device, shut down the device. There's a new option here, device history as well. Now haven't seen this in previous versions. You can set up the SNMP. Probably it's not gonna be anything. In service tab, we can set up our Palo Alto update server, where they will pull the dynamic updates and also software and all that. It's It's very important to set the correct DNS server here. If it's a wrong DNS server, it will not able to resolve this, and by default it will use a management interface for all this. And if you have an NTP server, you can configure here. If, let's say for example, you want to change that the update downloads or use like a different interface from the manager interface, so we can always you can always sorry about that, we can always adjust that from here. Or let's say for example, for LDAP you want to use a different interface than the management interface, we can change that as well. So Palo Alto Firewall gives us this option as well, that we can change which interface used for which service, which is very handy. We don't need a interface tab. Interface, if you ever want to manage the manager interface, you have to come from device setup and management interface and management. And here you can permit what IP. If you don't have anything, everything is allowed, but if you want to restrict only certain IP connects to your management interface, you can add the list here. And here we can set the IP, what is allowed, with the HTTPS allowed, SSH allowed, ping is allowed, SNMP allowed. All these services we can whatever is allowed for the management interface. Telemetry is self-explanatory. And then there's Wildfire tab. If you have an active subscription for Wildfire, you will see these options here, and some few other options, how many sessions are running and how many sessions firewall can support and all that stuff here. And the other important tabs we have is, if we have two firewalls, you can configure the high availability here. You can configure the link path monitoring here. And the other one is the administrators here. You can create admin, multiple administrator, or if you want to give somebody read-only access, you can create those here as well. So for me, you have super user, super read-only user, device administrator, and all these other options you have. So if you want to give to a trainee, you can give that as well. After that, here we have the important stuff. We have these traps, server profiles, so syslog, netflow, all these profiles as well. And here we can download and install the software. If this is not been managed by the Panorama, you can do that locally. Even if it's managed by Panorama, you can always do this locally as well. So obviously for this you will need to have a active subscription, and also internet on the Palo Alto Firewall, so you can pull all the latest version software versions. And then same goes for the dynamic updates, and also you can download the global product client here as well. Okay, I know why. They said because we haven't submitted the changes. I think that's why. So to commit the change, you just commit here, click here, commit. If there's multiple users making changes, you can make sure it's selected under your name. At the moment it's only myself, so I'll just commit to all. And it's going to take at least a couple of minutes, so I'm just going to pause the video, and then once we come back, it should be back to normal. Okay guys, so the job was completed successfully. However, I did make a couple of mistakes while configuring it, so I thought I will change that, before I start before I resume the video as well. The first mistake I made was when I configured the DHCP, I put the wrong IP address. I think instead of 192.168.20, I put 50 here. And I hope, I made the same mistake here as well. Sorry about that. So let me just save this, and then I'll come back shortly. Okay guys, so I've just corrected the mistakes I made. So now we can see the correct configuration. So because I've configured the DHCP for the interface 1/2, and on that we have the range 192.168.20.0/24, but by accidentally I put 50. Maybe I was talking and doing both things and made a mistake. So now we can see it's going to give up from 20 to 50, 50 to 100. Also the default gateway is correct, and the also put the different DNS servers. I put these DNS servers just to show you how to troubleshoot the issues as well. I will show you how to troubleshoot when you have issues, not just only configuration. So because we have the DHCP configured for the port 2, if I plug a device on this port, it should pick an IP address, and then we can do the further test as well. So let me just plug a cable to the 2, and hopefully it will pick an IP address. So you can see it is up, and here we go. So we can see my machine had picked an IP address. I've got a machine here on my lap, and if I check the IP address, yeah, I can see it's the IP address. And let's see if I can ping my default gateway, because we did attach the ping profile to my, yeah, I can ping my default gateway as well. So also just to show you, just in case, let's say for example somebody asked you like, okay, we have this device plugged in, could you please check if it's online or not? Yeah, you can check on the switch as well, but from the firewall we can check if it's pingable. Is first thing what I always do is I'll check the ARP table. So here we can see this this is the ARP entries there, and to check if it's pingable, like the firewall can talk to it, we can always do. So remember, if I just do this, run this command ping host, let's say for example 192, this is going to fail 20.50. This will use a management interface, but because this host is connected to the DMZ zone, or the different interface than the management, I will have to say, okay, ping from this source to this destination. So let's do one time show interface all ping. Oh, what happened? Let's do this one time. So I will do, because I want to ping this from the DMZ interface, so I will do ping source, the interface IP address, whatever it is, and then the host 50. There we go. So now we can see this firewall can talk to the host, and I can ping the default gateway as well. So now you can see the interface is up. We have all the policies. There's another thing I want to show you. Let me just plug my outside interface. Once that's plugged in, I'm going to show you if this device can go to internet, and if it can't, what we need to do. Okay guys, so I've got a cable plugged into my outside interface now, and you can see it says green, which means it's up, and we can do the same ping test to see if I can go out using my outside interface. So I'll do ping source 192.168.0.200 host. Let's ping Google. It's probably not going to ping because of the security policy. Let's ping my default gateway. Still can't ping my default gateway from this. I should be able to. Oh, I think I know why, because I think I've got another host with the same IP address on my network. Let me change the IP address, and then we'll take it from there. Actually, I'm going to put this interface on DHCP. Actually, no, I'll put a different IP, and then I resume the video. Okay guys, so I'm back. So sorry about that. I really apologize for that. Another device had the same IP address, which I put. Yeah, 200 is very easy to remember, but I already used that for something else. So now my outside IP is 201, and I think we can ping outside now. So I can ping my default gateway, yes, and I'll ping outside, yes, I can ping that as well. So now if I try to go to internet from the DMZ PC I've got connected here, and obviously it's gonna fail, and probably most of you already know the reason why it's gonna fail, but I just thought I'll add this to my video as well. So let's go to google.com. So I can ping Google from my this test machine. However, I'm not browsing, so let's see what's going on in the logs. So because I've got an active subscription on this firewall, I can see the traffic logs. If I don't, it will not show anything here. Okay, what's the policy I've got here? So let me I'm doing this all live, so that's why I have to change few things here and there, which is probably as good as well, so you can see. So let's see if I can go out from here. Oh, so currently I can't go out on this laptop because you can see there's a couple of issues here. First one is I don't have, in the policy I don't have the DMZ zone mentioned there, and the second one is I'm using the Google DNS, which I don't have, which I haven't allowed, so that's why it's failing. So let's see if you see packets now. So now I can't ping and I can't browse. So hopefully you can see some logs here. If you don't see any logs, that's good. That's another thing we need to make sure. Our inter zone, because at the moment you can see I'm trying to go out and it's blocking, it's not working. However, we don't see any logs, and that's the reason, because our inter zone rule I think is not allowing any logs. It's not set to log this session. So here we go. So we need to make sure, we need to override this rule. So log at the end. So now we will see anything getting blocked, because at the moment we can see the hit count is increasing. However, we can't see. The reason we can't see is because it's hitting the default deny rule. So I'm just gonna, that's one thing I wanted to show as well. So I'm just gonna add our DMZ zone here as well to save the time. DMZ, so I can go there. Also let's just allow DNS as well, so just to save the time. DNS, and because we have, yeah, this should cover the both ranges. That should be good. Okay, again I'm just gonna pause the video and then we'll resume. I'm just gonna reset the hit count on this one, so we'll see if anything hits this again. Alright guys, so now we have a rule which allows the DMZ and it's allowing the DNS, and because we are using Google DNS and I think it's Virgin DNS, the second DNS. So, and now we have the login turned on for the interzone rule as well. It's very, very important. There's a lot of occasion where I was troubleshooting a problem, and I could see that the traffic is not going through by, there was no logs. So then it took me time to realize, oh, I haven't turned the logging on the default interzone. So it's very handy. So now we should be able to see some traffic here, deny and allow traffic. There we go. So see, all the denied traffics are hitting the interzone, and all the allow traffic is hitting the rule we created. So monitoring tab is the best location for you when you're troubleshooting a problem. Also, if a user, let's say for example, is having issue going to the internet, another tab I like to have is a NAT tab to see if even the NAT is getting applied. So if you go to, if you see an internet traffic and if you see no here, you know that there's something wrong with the source NAT as well. So I hope this has been very helpful. I think the last thing I want to show you, once you have a active subscription, you can go to device and software tab, where you can get the latest software. just remember, every time you come here after a while, you have to click check now, so it pulls the new definitions down. You probably get this sort of error, so you have to click check now, and then it should pull down the new list. And same goes for the dynamic updates as well. Just make sure if you have a firewall in your corporate environment, the dynamic updates are set to install automatically, depending on whatever interval you or your company require. So these things are very, very important. So I think if you follow these steps, we have some hiccups, which is probably maybe is a good way of you to learn how you can troubleshoot these issues as well. So now there we go. So the software, you can see it has pulled down the software, and we should be saying for the dynamic updates, yeah, by default for the antivirus is sets for download only. I recommend you change that to download and install. Same goes for, I think, antivirus. And unfortunately these PA220s are very slow firewalls. So yeah, I hope this has been helpful for you guys. I could plug a Cisco switch or a third-party switch where we can have a trunk interface, and we can have all the sub interfaces underneath one of the physical interface. That's one thing maybe I'll do for future. You know how to set the zones now. You should know how to set the virtual router now. You should know how to set a DHCP scope as well, and how to set policies. Netting is very important. Same goes for the monitoring tab, or if you don't have an active subscription, the log's going to come under session browser, where you can see what sessions are running. Here we go. I hope this has been helpful for you. Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Bye bye.